how you doing? Yeah. Jordan.
Probably talked to them.
Yeah. Yeah, man. You're certainly not here for our class, are you?
Well, you know what, actually, I think a lot of the people. Probably not listening,
No.
but there are people.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, before, I was at Amatech, but about 15 years ago, I was at Enthalpy.
Okay.
So that's,
I remember Kevin Johnson calling.
yeah. Right. So, yeah, because I did, ran GCs and FTIRs and then moved into like project management stuff there. Pilot.
Yeah.
Yep. I was surprised when Steve sold the lab, but 'cause I thought, I was like, he's never gonna sell that lab. Because he sold the biotech side they had, a couple years before that. I was like, it's never gonna happen to the environmental side, but then I guess, they were dead set on having a lab, and he was like, well, it better be mine.
Yeah.
Give up on it. Yeah. Yep.
They've got into everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. Chris Lay one time told me, he said, why would the one?
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
So like, if you start stepping on their toes, like.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, it's like the consultants, like, most of the third-party consultants don't want to bother with them anymore. Yeah. But in all honesty, I mean, if nobody's coming here, I don't know, we're gonna give a talk.
Give me all your trade secrets over the next hour.
Oh, you want trade secrets? Look, I got pictures of PM10 heads in here, in case you've never seen one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
When you guys do your labs, you guys do everything internal?
no.
Okay. Not everything.
Yeah, we do a lot of it internally, but
Like docs, you do that internally. But you still get the report out to me. Somebody gets docs report.
yeah, we get, yeah.
It's either 2 weeks or 2 days after.
2 days after we get the report. But we've gotten our, like, the lab vendors to, yeah, to hit our standards, because I would say, okay, I'm gonna do, 250 method 23 runs this year.
Yeah.
This is what I need, and I say, okay.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's what we can.
Yeah. But no, I mean, the rest of it, like the easy stuff, we do internally. We've got 6 labs, so kind of spread stuff around, and if one's getting backed up, we can move stuff to other locations. Kind of cover it that way. And you guys opened a second location, didn't you?
We've got an office in Birmingham, Alabama, and one.
Birmingham. I mean, that's
We're looking
kind
to
of
start
new,
with
isn't it?
Houston, though. Yeah, Mike's always been down there.
Oh, okay.
Do most of the work out of
Yeah.
there.
Okay, so that office is really just for.
You know the deal. You have been around consultants long enough to know that anywhere anybody lives is an office.
I mean, that's why we've got an office in Westchester.
Right?
It's like,
Somebody lives there.
yeah.
We just hired somebody that. He's an office too. Office now.
Wasn't somebody who left AQS, was it?
Yeah.
It is?
Jennifer, right. Yeah. Probably long before we get.
Yeah, I don't know about that. It wasn't our goal when we started on this of like, oh, well, we want to be the biggest, or we want to, ramp up and go public. It was really, the big thing was how do we survive and compete against what Montrose was doing? And it's like, and I mean, like one of the hardest things, right, is keeping your staff, like you train them up and in 2 years and they're out, they're like, yeah, like it's too much for them. So if we continually have path forward for them, and the best way to keep having paths forward and for them to grow is we keep expanding. So new opportunities. We got, so many different departments now, and people can do laterally, and it kind of helps to paint like a better career path for somebody. Because I mean, and especially like you hit the 2 year, and then like you hit the 5 year hump, and it's like if they're still just like, out there running projects all the time, it's like they start, start to get like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this forever.
Yeah. You got kids,
Yeah, exactly.
single guys.
Yeah,
It is hard, gosh, it's hard.
it is. It's been particularly hard recently too.
But people, so I always start people off in the field interview. People also, and then they get out there all the time. On this. Saying, if you've never climbed on it, but stack, you don't know what to think.
Right.
Well, we emphasize, the great level of travel. We emphasize that. We say, unless you're in Houston or Baton Rouge, where there's a lot of local work, you're gonna be traveling. That's fine, I love traveling.
No,
It's
it's
not that
seriously,
you need to think about this because
Yeah.
it doesn't just affect you, it affects everybody around you. Dog, your cat, your family, your friends, your significant others.
I've done this forever and ever.
I can't turn it off. In the listen mode, so it's like transcribing everything that we're saying.
You can't have a bowling night.
Yeah.
Cancel all your hobbies.
Exactly.
I think you're good.
Well, and even for borrow, some people say, well, I don't get it. It's, yeah.
you don't know what it's like getting up
I
5
did.
o'clock in the
I
morning,
did.
you're on site. You did.
I'd be up till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, you go back to the hotel, and is that really what you want to do?
All right.
A lot of stress.
We were talking to a guy at AQS, got a bottom,
Mhm.
but I think it's the exact thing, he didn't see.
No path forward, yeah.
But the dude was, I was thinking, and they only did like 4 clients, so he was home every single night,
Yeah.
and I was like, I honestly didn't want to take him away, because I was like, I can't offer you anything better.
It's- yeah.
You've got it good, staff guys are at home every single night,
Right.
I guess the 4 clients they do right there.
Yeah. And this power plants there. I don't know, I called Nick to see if we got an actual list of who signed up for this, and, said he was gonna have to get with Miranda and see. Kinda
Supposed to start at 8.
8 o'clock, on the dot. I got in here at 7 just to make sure everything's right. As I was just telling Jesse, in 2020, so it's February 2020, like 30 some odd people here, and the same the previous year, it was good turnout.
But we talking to somebody. Concerned about the actual part.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
No, I didn't see how.
hopefully it's just, first day. Decided to-
I think this is a kind of a bad plan of starting these, like, this far before the trade show starts. Normally, it's like the trade show set up, and then the next morning, it's like they set up, and then the next day is trade shows open in the morning for breakfast, 7 to 8, and then we're in here in session. Yeah, just before you came in, I kind of took a little walk around, just looking, peeking indoors to see what's going on.
Want to hear something funny? House at ERM. I got paid. And I was like, I've been doing this for like 5 or 6 years. I got paid. Consultant at ERM to go watch Chris LeMay do a test in Dallas. Make sure he didn't screw it up.
Morning.
Yes. I think if you scan the little code thing, it'll pop up.
And the registration desk does it.
They ran out.
Oh, they ran out?
Oh, on that one, okay, there's another code up there. Yeah. I don't want to.
How long is this one?
This is a 4-hour,
It's broken up in different.
but if you just want to talk about stat testing, we don't have an audience, we can talk about it too.
So I'm interested in leak detection and the quantification.
Well, we have a division that does that, and we have somebody's gonna actually do a workshop on verification. But that is definitely something.
I've been a company called Sensor. But if I'm a previous slide, hey, I'm having to talk. Wow.
Yeah.
I'll look the,
Oh, you got one?
yeah, snag one before I get this. Where's on right now? Well, it looks like, I hate to send you off, but it looks like in room 4, they're doing quad O Eldar training.
415. This
This
is
is 410.
415 that way and around the backside.
But there's some other ones, just scattered throughout the day. Like I said, I know our group is also doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Round them up.
Or fixing the
slow.
Are you speaking?
I'm one of them, yeah.
What time does it start?
It was supposed to start at 8. So we're kind of waiting for a crowd to come in.
Okay.
Yeah. You interested in listening to this or?
Well, I actually, my company stack test as well.
Okay, so stack testers listening to stack testers.
Oh, Chris with Bison Engineering.
Oh, hey, I'm Jesse Rocha with Alliance.
Jesse, nice to meet
Nice to meet you. So you're up in the Washington area?
Montana. I'm in
Montana. Oh, Montana, that's right.
Helena and Billings, we have 2 offices, and then we have an office in Tucson.
Okay.
So we mostly operate in the Rocky Mountain West, out to the West Coast.
Oh, there's some stuff out in Hamburg too. Right?
We are, yeah. I'm not super familiar. One of my other guys is coming here later today that is more involved in that. But we work for, whatever, across the board industry.
Yeah.
Morning, Jesse.
I guess that's the bummer of the 8 a.m. on the first day, huh?
Well, it's, I think, the other rooms are.
Yeah, I just took the loop, so I'm actually speaking here this afternoon in this room, so I'll just come to see.
What are you talking
Ambient air quality monitoring.
Okay.
So we're air consultants, I guess. So we have a permitting and compliance group. We have an ambient air monitoring group. Stack tests out of all of our offices. And we also manufacture a on-stack volumetric flow instrument for SEMS. So we stack testing is about half of our business. We're I guess a regional player.
Yeah, Alliance is definitely extending our capability. It was also.
Right, sounds like you guys are growing like crazy here.
Yeah. Our retail, our group. And we got some ambient also. Not so much here in Texas. Got a few permitters, but not really our business. Major
So
business.
you're kind of growing beyond stack testing
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, but as far as like labs that we picked up, they're still stacked up. But yeah, the main thing was just trying to the national football. And California was big.
Yeah, and honestly, we avoided California like the plague.
It's difficult.
Yeah,
It really is.
I think you gotta kind of be from there and you gotta know from the start, and
Yeah.
we're not. It's just like, we've done a few jobs in California. It's just-
And that's kind of how we did it. We thought about some sort of organic growth, sending someone to our office. But just, yeah.
I really think, and I only say this because we've had a few guys from California, it's like, you have to be from California, and I think have grown your career there. I think to step into California, not knowing, it's just really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many differences.
Well, and they have, there's all kinds of local offices,
Yeah.
every county's got their own program.
So I'm a regional manager, but I'm not, I'm in central, so
Okay.
I oversee Dallas, Little Rock, Denver, and Cedar Rapids.
Okay.
So that's my region.
So we might cross paths a little. We don't do much work in Colorado, but I would say our work is, is Montana and the surrounding states, so the Dakotas, Wyoming, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, a little bit of Nevada, a little bit of Utah, and then our office mostly operates. Cross paths, we've been doing this once in a while. Not a lot.
Only reason I knew you guys were up at Hanford is, so I used to work for AECOM,
Okay.
and I was in the DO program, so I was part of the DOD. We had a lot of former DOD people go work up there. I was okay. When I was at AECOM, I helped kind of do a little bit of consulting. They were going to do stack testing.
contracting there.
Yeah.
That's by far the most complex
Somebody,
contracting we deal with.
somebody that's been there, that was my initial introduction to it. We have stack testers.
You know, it's
They
like,
had to
oh,
jump through
God.
hoops
I mean, we're
to-
talking years,
Yeah.
years of hoop jumping. To even like roll a trailer in the front gate, I mean, just
Yeah.
insane.
Well, the major thing was the UL requirement.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Oh.
and when I started, they were like, no, like every piece of equipment has to have a UL code on it. And I'm like, why?
I know, well, like, you know, we built some of these things ourselves, like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess now that we're over that hurdle, not, and they don't even test all that much, but I would honestly say at Hanford, that's probably the most expensive tests we've ever done. We just charged them insane money, and not that we're trying to screw them, but the time it takes, and they have been pretty understanding in dealing, you know, because that's the world. Just the most expensive stack test you can imagine. It just blows my mind. We did a couple of flow verifications. Guys with an ego. And they nitpicked the report for, I think, a year. So, I mean, and you guys probably deal with that kind of stuff too. Yeah.
So we, you know, they put a bid out for comprehensive factors.
Well, that was the big one. We didn't even bid on that.
Yeah, well, it was, I mean, and that's when we got into the UL stuff and they were like, yeah, no. I kind of started asking a question. And basically said, I was like, we're gonna have to bring an outside firm and, tag our equipment.
Right.
First check it out and then tag it. And then that equipment's pretty much dedicated, you know, because we don't wanna take out the field or something happened to it. Now we got that one less piece of equipment. So it was, that whole UL process was probably about 60,000.
Right, as a matter of fact, now that you say that, one of the things that happened was they actually came to our, sent guys out to our office, go through our trailers, go through our lab, through the office a little bit. This was just the scale of what they. And I understand, you know, it's very safety driven, but, you know, at some point, it's just insane.
But I can imagine for just doing a flow check, you know, billing side or aspects of it, kind of get back up and everything. For the CPP.
I don't even know, did they let that, or did somebody win that?
TRC one.
Did they?
Yeah, TRC.
Power to them.
Yeah, and it's a big resource to train product.
Well, and that's kind of where we ultimately, it's like, we have to dedicate every person and everything we add to that. And I don't even know how do you build that? I mean, that had to have been in.
I was one of those who was like, hope we get it, I kind of hope we don't,
Yeah.
because I get to see, you know, our accounting system, they're gonna have to be somebody just pure.
Well, they wanted us to do that, we're already kind of in here, and that should do this, and it was just the scope of that was just, it took totality of the whole. Well, there you go, I learned something, so power to TRC, and I'll be interested in hearing.
They haven't started, they're stable slide. I think possible 2025 get started with some of the. I'm still in contact with a lot of those folks.
I'm interested in country.
Yeah, like I said, it's,
We've done some stack testing one-on-ones ourselves, and it would be interesting to compare notes.
sure.
How long?
Well, we scheduled until within 4 hours.
And in past years, we typically have about 30-some folks. I just took a walk around, like, so.
Yeah, a lot of these are not very busy. Couple
Yeah,
people.
the ones on the backside are all optical gas imaging and quantifying OGI and just like those rooms all have folks in them.
Oh.
Yeah. So. Here's best stack.
And then when they're like, don't you guys do the stats? We'll just leave that up to you.
It's a very generic,
Yeah.
so it's not like. Now, we are doing a last minute PFAS presentation tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
We had one of our presenters who was talking on OT 37. He, family, actually, so they were like, hey, can y'all do the presentation? And I'm like, well, sure, I can do it as long as it's not OPM 37. He goes, no, that was it. Jordan, same thing, you know, like, we're not the experts.
I can have like a 10-minute conversation about it, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I said, you know, we just did a OPM 45 presentation, maybe might be interested in that, you know. That's the hot topic, you know.
Right.
Quite a bit of it, so just, you know, introduction. Yeah, Dave Ostrowski is going to be back. He was one of
No, I guess it was Scott Williams.
Yeah, Scott Williams with Lions, but Dave was the old O'Brien year, followed by Ramball, and then they were kind of like, I'm legacy back there.
Oh, okay.
So, and we required that test America. Ramball and O'Brien year relationship was kind of like, you know, it's a nice little niche to have, you know. We'll only support you so much, you know. So they were willing to sell off.
Okay.
So they for testing the code. On our Metco side, we were part of Test America, so we were in loop with the development of handle training. Now, all kind of.
It has some kind of ground experience.
Yeah, yeah. And we're getting more requests. You know.
We have entertained a few, and we have done experts. It's just more few and far between out west for us.
Yeah,
We worked a little bit on a project in Alaska. But I think it's more east around us, more water quality and contamination. Air aspect came out of that. Dirt burn remediating soils that had PFAS, and what happens to the PFAS? Well, is it in the air and how it goes?
well, I mean, it's, there's very little like enforcement right now. You must accept for PFAS. That Jersey had one, they issued it. That's the only one I've seen. Everybody else is kind of like just curiosity.
Right,
Where
we're
are we at?
proactive, like what is happening?
Yeah, where are we at?
Well, I think some of some of North Carolina, they're under consent decree.
Well, yeah, I guess
Yeah.
those early ones.
That are first ones.
Yeah. West Virginia now. non-disclosure. It'll start ramping. I won't see it.
It's still, I guess I'm just curious. How far can you go with an FTIR? Could you develop some FTIR reference standards, put it in the Spectra? Could it be done? 'Cause I haven't heard much on that.
Jordan can talk to the, finding some sort of,
Or is there a gazillion compounds?
there's a gazillion compounds. And yeah, so which one do you look for? All these programs are kind of in this area. For that. But yeah, a lot of that stuff is still being hashed out. Tell us someday.
Yeah, well,
How you gotta do it.
I think they should really. Just a standard.
Yeah.
All right, well. I got this room at 1 o'clock, so I'm hoping somebody shows up for me, but.
Yeah.
I guess it's easier. Well, it's. It is what it is.
We can have these kind of conversations, you know, with the people that do come in.
Or it's just stack testers.
Yeah.
Dave from Aerodynamics came in, we talked to him for a little bit, so.
Right?
Yeah.
All you guys along. Yeah, we've got a lot of booths out here, we just got.
Our guys are. They weren't set up yesterday.
I think the actual setup is like, starts at 3.
So let me ask you a business question though. So we've got employees dropping like flies here lately. You guys experiencing that?
Not dropping, but it's been very difficult to hire. Guys that are coming in are asking $5 an hour to start.
But I made an offer to a lab analyst so with 1 year of experience, and I ended up offering 25. So, like, I'm kidding you, like, you have no legitimate experience, and
I don't know.
I don't think that's.
Maybe I'm just a little bit too old school. I have a hard time wrapping my head around things like we're 40, 45 people. We've lost. We survived last year pretty well. We have a pretty solid work. We got employees dropping like flies in 2020. I've had a couple guys quit in the last few weeks. They're like, they don't even have another job. Just gonna do whatever.
Yeah.
Be Mr. Mom at home. Stay. I mean, just crazy. Some of these guys are paid pretty well.
Yeah, well, it boiled down, a lot of our attrition boiled down to what's been exact testing forever. I always tell people when people quit, it's not because of the work. Unless you're down in Houston or Baton Rouge, where there's a lot of local stuff. So that's what has happened for us. It hasn't been a massive exodus or anything from a certain area, but it's just been a slow one.
Yeah, you get the trickle out, and then you can't get back there.
I feel, yeah, and I mean, I looked at our numbers, I guess it was about a week ago. Currently we have 172 full stack testing down, and, 25 short. We're still.
Which is a lot.
We're still trying to.
Yeah, it's like your normal workload.
Meet our budgets and revenue. And not bring it all in. So, we beefed up our recruiting support resources a little bit. Starting to see it, they're starting to fill resumes and phone screenings and you take the pipeline. Cool, but then we get to that point where they're, that's stacked up. 25 an hour. No experience, right? That's, for us, that's 5 years out, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, well, leave you guys be. Nice to meet you. And
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
see you later. Yeah, I'll see you then.
Like a CEO and a Knox here. There we go.
That was our outside, not so
All right.
Little
Yeah, the little
screen.
Fixes that.
This is you guys starting soon or? We showed up?
Yeah, yeah, this is it. We've had some folks kind of filter through and just hang out and talk for a little bit about
Yeah.
whatever stack testing topics they're interested in. It hasn't,
Well, guys, sit down and talk for a little bit. then?
absolutely.
So I guess just to give you a little bit of my background, I do environmental compliance for UGI Energy Services. I'm out of Pennsylvania, the Marcellus area.
Okay.
Pretty relatively new to air permitting. I got my teeth on like wetland tree permitting for pipeline projects. So I've been kind of on the air side, just helping with compliance for about a year now. So still a lot to learn, obviously. Got requirements for stack testing, but I don't understand a lot about it.
This is mostly just on the engines along the pipeline. Yeah.
Yeah, so typically, have you guys any work in Pennsylvania?
We've got an office in Pittsburgh that does all Marcellus and shale.
Yeah,
stuff,
so, we're typically getting, our compressors that are running a lot, once a year, but I think it's hard, maybe, over hours. So we're having it done quite a bit, and it's not as process.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, and it's set to every 8,000, I think it's 8,600 hours or something. So it's pretty much every year unless it's got significant downtime. Yeah. Pennsylvania is kind of interesting because so all those engines are covered federally by 40 CFR Part 60 Quad J, right? So Part J. And so there's different parameters for it. Right, so you have CO, NOx, and VOC. But Pennsylvania takes it a step further and has really strict limits on the VOC portion of it. So federally, a lot of these compressor stations, they can have emissions of VOC that are much higher. And these engines that normally anywhere else in the country are fine. In Pennsylvania, it's much more difficult because Pennsylvania sets mass rate limits. They say, and it's, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a very low pound per hour number for VOC. So that's probably the trickiest part about doing it in PA. But I mean, basically the essential parts of it, the CO and the NOx, I mean, these are really simple tests. Just with primary principal analyzers. So they're analyzing, just basic physical characteristics of those compounds. It's easy to do. When testing comes around, a lot of folks will kind of take the time and tune the engine because you get with the combustion process, right? You have this balance between CO, which you get when you have incomplete combustion, and then the NOx when you too much air, and so there's a lot of balancing act there usually trying.
So do operations personnel, they typically on site when you guys are running the test to see what they can or do?
Yeah, especially on some of the bigger compressor stations, like some of the ones up there that have like 10 or 12 engines, like they're going to have either one of their operations folks or the maintenance contractor or somebody there to kind of tune them. Now, perfectly honestly, when we're doing it, a lot of times the first question is well, your numbers can't be right. It's like, okay, well, we test thousands of engines every year. Like, I'm pretty sure the numbers are good, but we double check everything before they start tweaking it. But yeah, that's pretty common, just because if the ratio is off just a little bit, like you can really throw something out of compliance.
Can you walk me through kind of what you do as far as stack tests? Like how many runs do you do? What kind of load are you looking for?
Yeah, I don't have that here. So the stack test, I mean, we've got to do 3 1-hour runs. in between each run, we've got to do calibrations and bias checks, things like that. So like a typical test at a compressor station, it's going to be coming on site. Depends how far it is from an office, but a lot of times you come on site, get there in the afternoon or something, and then the next day we can test up to 4 engines in a day. Years ago in the summer, me and one of the guys from Little Rock, we would do 6 in a day. But it was summertime, the out until, out there until 9 o'clock.
Well, you can do that if they're all in the same.
Right, all in one pad, yeah. Easy.
Yeah, but there are times, especially like in the next, it takes an hour to drive out there and test. An hour and a half to go to the next place. You gotta break everything down. If you don't have a platform to test from, and you're dragging a man lift, either go behind man lift. We do have, one vehicle in Colorado, we're gonna get some more, the truck has a bucket. So we're able to pull the trailer with our truck. So that speeds it up a lot. And- Oh, yeah. Yeah, but, it definitely helps, and then you gotta think about how what do we.
I think most of these stations, so like our crews that do all of Marcellus, pretty much all of our mobile labs have onboard generators. Because most of those, you going up and down through the mountains, like you don't have anything. But yeah, so those tests, I mean, you get 3 1-hour runs for those parameters, and it's usually pretty straightforward testing.
So can you describe to me what the difference is? Back test
Yeah, so
and 500 hours.
yeah, well, the periodic monitoring is just done with like a little like handheld analyzer, right? So they're taking it, so you calibrate it. I mean, it's not that different, but periodic monitoring is not necessarily, you're not using a probe and measuring that to stack. Like a lot of times they'll have a line that just comes down and guys will come and hook up their little monitor to it. I think the big thing with periodic monitoring is it kind of gives you a good idea, hey, are things changing a lot versus this is a real accurate number. But so, yeah, I mean, that regular monitoring is quick and easy. A lot of times you're just using like a sensor versus the stack test. For the NOx, for example, they're going to use a chemiluminescence analyzer. You're doing it with that handheld. It's I think a lot of them are just heat sensor. So you kind of get like a better depth of analysis. Like so it is better. It's better at dealing with interferences and getting actual data there. And then also you're measuring flow, so you can, right? There's different ways to do the gas flow rate from the stack. You can do it just calculating based on fuel consumption, right? So you need to know the heating value of fuel, and it can be calculated up to, okay, well, if we burn this many cubic feet of natural gas, we know that when we burn this much natural gas, we get this much total volume, right? And you can apply the concentrations to that to get the mass rate numbers. You can also measure the flow. So there's, let's see here. Show you some of this.
That was the intent of this whole conference.
Yeah, I think if I don't have 20 people, like we can just talk. So I just jump forward to this. This is kind of one of our flow rate measurement slides. So you can calculate the flow rate, like I said, if you have like a straight combustion source, like the compressor stations. But if you're actually measuring it, what we end up doing is taking flow rate measurements from a bunch of points within the stack, right? Now this graphic has gotten a little bit distorted, but actually each of those points is supposed to be, it's in the center of an equal area. So the stack gets divided up in some way, depending on the ports and everything that's set up there. And you sample from a bunch of locations there. And what we're actually measuring when we do that, most of these are all circular, so I won't even get into it. So it's typically an S-type pitot tube. So essentially we're going to measure the differential. We put it in the stack, and one face is towards the flow and one side faces away. And we measure the differential pressure there, and we can convert that differential pressure along with the gas molecular weight and the size of the duct into a volumetric flow rate. A lot of these compressor stations, though, don't necessarily have full proper ports and everything like industrial stack tests. So there's different types of pitot tubes that can be used, like a standard pitot, which just straight goes in and just has one face, and you're just comparing to ambient pressures. But you don't get this kind of flow measurement with your periodic monitoring. So your periodic, you're like, okay, we've got a concentration, we're going to estimate our flow rate and call it a day. But if you really need to turn the results into mass rate emissions, you really need a good flow rate, because any change, so let's say you measured 100 parts per million, right? And you're guessing, okay, I've got 100 cubic feet per minute, just to call it easy numbers. You just multiply your concentration by that and the molecular weight, and you can get pounds per hour. But if your flow rate measurement is off, that really skews those results dramatically. And so in Pennsylvania, like you're saying, when it starts to get to the VOCs, and they've got those very low pound per hour limits on the VOCs, having a really accurate flow measurement is critical, because I mean, we're talking about, in most of these cases, like 6 to 8 parts per million of VOC, and you're over your permit limit. So that's one of the trickiest parts about the compressor stations, because then a lot of them, right, like, don't even have any ports, and it's like, well, all we can do is, I mean, you know, it'd be great if there were ports, we could do it, but a lot of folks say, I know we're not going to put ports in to do this, so we're just doing the calculation approach. And you don't have something you can't back up and say, well, is that really, good? Like, is it really right? Whereas when there's actually ports installed on the stacks, we can have both measurements, and you're kind of like, okay, yeah, this is good. This makes sense.
How accurate is your insurance? What you're using to calculate the gas flow going is accurate. I mean, what does that mean? So they'll call us and say, my portable stack is sit on there. We don't necessarily like to do that, but we can have that in the past. Up there and steer it. Is it gonna fit every engine that you have out there? Do you have any
Yeah, I've got some. So this is actually the, I don't know why this isn't using the right display mode, but this is a kind of standard thing in our mobile labs that do the engines especially. but this is a dual setup of an inclined manometer. So this is what we actually use to measure the differential pressure. So the pitos up in the stack, each face comes down and feeds the I don't know, the positive and the negative side of the manometer. And then we've got really fine gradation here that we can see and measure, fractions of inches. So that's what's going on in the mobile lab. We also have, these are also, there's portable ones, but we build them in, and like I said, our Pittsburgh office, every mobile lab has one of these built into it. I got my board here. Yeah. So one of the other things when we're doing, when we do VOC, that's important is measuring the moisture, because the VOC measurement is a wet-based measurement. So your CO and your NOx are dry, which means we bring the gas down, we remove the moisture from it, and we're analyzing a dry sample. That's just the way those analyzers work. And that's great because most permit limits and everything are based on dry concentrations, dry values. VOCs are measured on a hot and wet basis. So your organics, we've got a wet number, which means, okay, we haven't removed the moisture from it. And so we're going to get a different concentration than we would if it were dry. But we can't dry it because in the drying process, we could potentially remove some of the hydrocarbons. So it's a hot wet basis. So we have to measure the moisture as well. Find out, okay, let's say the stack has 10% moisture. Well, that means when I convert to a dry basis, all of my numbers are going to go up. So that's another thing. It's like, well, when you're doing the tests in Pennsylvania, it's like, you better make sure you get a real good moisture number. Now the moisture can also be calculated from the method 19 calc. So the same calculation we use to get the flow rate, we can also use for moisture. But again, we're depending on the analysis of the fuel that the facility gives us, or that we take a fuel sample and get it back to one of our laboratories and do it.
So real quick, do you need an updated path now or
If you're using the calculations for the flow rate, you must have a fuel analysis from the day of the test. If you're just using it, and that came out, EPA came out with that maybe 2 years ago. They were like, no, you have to. I think, but if you're using it just for your moisture and for some other things, it's not as strict. It doesn't have to be the day of the test. But so most times we ask for one and say, hey, one from within the past 3 months or something. Because I think most folks anymore, it seems like they're doing monthly analysis anyway. Yeah, we can perform that analysis. We've got our gas lab in Denver. Well, honestly, what we do find sometimes is, folks in Pennsylvania or, other parts of the country, it's like there's local labs that they can just run over to and do it. And then some of the bigger, some of the bigger operators, they have their own laboratories and they just aggregate samples and run them there. Let's see. And I can't jump through the slides for some reason here. Show you some more. I guess just making sure you know exactly what you got. I don't think there's really any, I don't know of any particular other reason. I'm just looking to see, I don't have any real pictures of engine testing stuff. I've got. Just this. So this, I mean, this is like, so for an industrial stack test, and that's, you wouldn't see something quite this complex for anything at a compressor station. But I mean, this is like standard stack testing. So we've got, the probe going into the stack. We've got filters up here if we're measuring, particulate matter or anything, which you shouldn't have any particulate matter limits or requirements to test, on the compressor stations. In some cases, sometimes we get requests to do it, but I don't think there's any. Yeah. That's fine. But then the rest is, so this back portion, my arm out of the way. Okay. So this back portion here, this is part of the method for, like, part of the moisture measurement system. And essentially all that is. Oh, there was one. Okay, close enough. Ignore this part here. That's a different method. But basically, we bring the gas out, it bubbles through these glass impingers. There's some water in well, these are dry, and then there's some water in them. And we're just making sure, hey, the gas comes in full contact with the cold water. And we know how much is in there to begin with, and we measure how much there is at the end. We've got a total gain. And then on the back of this goes to a gas meter. So we know how much dry gas went through all there. And we say, okay, well, if we collected, 30 cubic feet of gas and we gained 1 liter of water, we can convert that 1 liter of water using the stack temperature to what is the gas volume of that water, but we're all still gas phase. And then we've got that total gaseous volume of water and the total dry gas volume, add them together. Now you have the actual total volume that came out, and the moisture fraction is just the ratio of the water volume to the total volume. Yeah, and so things get more and more complex. This is actually a picture of that photo I showed. This is what's actually going on there, with the particulate matter probe and filtering, and then the impinger trains and everything going back. Yeah, I don't.
You've never seen that? Yeah, it's basically, you got. Probe where you're doing real time on. This is happening, all of the samples being brought. Somebody there monitoring.
Yeah, and so you can see, yeah, and up front here's that same, the dual incline manometers. And then, yeah, there's the analyzers on the racks. And so these are the same analyzers that might be installed at industrial facilities for their regular monitoring. There's CO analyzers, NOx analyzers, hydrocarbon analyzers, and all set up. So the way we set up all of our mobile labs that do the engine work is we set them up with dual systems, because pretty much every pad, every one of these locations, there's more than one source of test. So we test them 2 at a time, like kind of park in between them, and 2 at a time, just get everything done. But so each one of these racks on the back side and the bottom has a gas conditioner, and that's doing things like that. Like I said, that's removing let's do some filtration, and it's removing the moisture so we get those dry samples. So just before where the moisture gets removed in there, is a T that comes out and feeds the hydrocarbon analyzer. So we've got a hot, wet number on hydrocarbon, we've got the dry numbers for the CO, NOx, CO2, O2, and then, then the rest of it goes to that hydrocarbon. And then in the back, and you can't see, but in the back, there's also all just like calibration gases and everything. So guys are going to come out, they're going to start up all the analyzers. You got to calibrate everything, which depending on how how the day goes, sometimes everything could be up and running and calibrated in 2, maybe 3 hours or so. Sometimes it's 8 hours. It kind of depends. On there's a lot of other factors, just even besides the equipment that they bring out that sometimes, and we run into this going up and down over the mountains to get up to some of those remote sites in Pennsylvania, and they get up there and wires are jiggled loose, and it's just you spend half a day like, okay, it worked fine before we left, and now we got here and things have been jiggling around. You're right, right.
Yeah, my lockdown center, get in there. You got your calculation, done everything, get set up and put it in the first back. And operating guy comes in and looks. Come back and so the deal comes down. Very good. So it gives them just an indication before we select the official test. Sometimes I remember. I rated everything, I set my frozen stack and total instrument calibrated on the field. 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. Yes. I don't know. 5,000. There is a way to do a wet method seal measurement called Foresight. Usually, it used to be a lot for O2 and CO2, but just basically you pull a gas sample and you run it through both with chemical. Get a different volume, so you're able to figure out what the O2. Well, you can put a third liquid in there to CO. I collected that, I ran it through. Now, 1.5%. So it was well over 10,000 ppm, so I was going off that, and when I showed them that, there was like 2 guys out there. So I showed them, I said, this is a wet method reaction. So later, the camp came around. And it was not, our capital, not anymore. My goodness. So there's just, you never know what you're gonna run into, especially for a period of time. You're do that very like. Exactly.
So how tried and true is that? How long has it been? So I have a follow-up question to that. So we Facebooker, we have access. However, we had flyover. Something. Yeah, it wasn't a drone, it was a flyover. We had second testing done. Like 6 kilograms per hour. He comes over with this air code and says, I like, can't knock. No low down, nothing. That we are aware. So when DP called us, told us about it, so. Like the same result that we have reported, 80%. Being, your technology, you probably haven't been, stack that. And I was just curious if you guys.
Yeah,
what
so,
you're at.
so, I mean, in that case, right, they're looking for greenhouse gas purposes. Which it always gets a little bit tricky because, so the states have their own initiatives and what they want to do. EPA asks for greenhouse gas stuff from certain types of industry, not all of them. And there's this constant debate of, well, is this under EPA's jurisdiction? Because like, well, they're not like harmful to people directly, but when they develop technology, so the technology they use there is probably just, it's as straightforward as optical gas imaging, like you can, that is.
So they sent us a snapshot of the.
And it's like black and white, it's like bright. You can
Yeah,
see
like
it.
a purple.
Yeah.
However, DEP came to our facility, they have those.
Right.
They use like clear cameras.
Yeah.
For at the gate, they can buy.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, so if you actually test for those things at your stacks, like that's gonna be a much better number. The only question comes out about the methodology used to do that, because you could measure, if they're saying, oh, well, methane, so, okay, great, you could measure methane, there's like 6 or 7 different ways you can do it, and, you make sure you're picking the right methodology to get it. But depending on the technology he used, they may be picking up not just the methane, they may be picking up a variety of potential greenhouse gases, and they're just lumping it all together and putting it on a methane basis, because that is the most common from these engines, right? It's typically over 1,000 parts per million, in the standard gas. But yeah, so it may be just lumped together, but that said, it's like, well, if it's all lumped together, then are there other things coming out there from a natural gas fired compressor engine? There really shouldn't, so there's probably something either with the way they calibrated it or something that's, no, I mean, because I wouldn't expect that much of a deviation.
Yeah.
Like, I could see, even like 20, maybe 30%, but, you're talking about hundreds of,
You said they were flying over, like an
Yeah.
airplane?
Yeah,
or-
yeah.
maybe where they shoot right through their own exhaust.
But there's, there's air in an operator, they're operated, very sensitive equipment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't just go point. Have the angles and everything, the distances, and you take temperature. Yeah. So just, things like that can happen.
And if you're calibrating for 50 feet and you're flying at 1,000 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, so, they're probably just looking for some pros. But let's see, have them check that.
So I do, I ordered the fact that we had the. Had a big off of. That was my response. And after, like,
But it's a shame they didn't provide more information about their study. They don't have to, I guess, but.
They're rushing down on the phone saying they want to be covered.
Yeah,
The permit says they have the right to come in.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
something like
That's
that.
how you know.
Offside. Regulators vary office to office, year to year. Some guys work with you.
Yeah, and we had, he had contacted something similar. But, great, yeah, they contacted us, asked us. Check our, everything they have, that.
But yeah, I mean, and so the stack testing methods that anybody would have used for running this stuff, anything, and I mean, these are, have been around for a long time. They're the technologies to do the measurements, right, we're talking about, so the methane is either a red measurement or it's a ionization detector, and I mean, these technologies at this point. The methods do get rewritten and updated, like some details of more specifically things to do and whatever, but, it's not like a novel approach to doing it.
Pennsylvania, you guys had to create that
A protocol.
Can't do that in other.
Yeah, some states will allow, they just have like a one-page form fill out, and you just kind of fill it out and on. But some states, including Pennsylvania, you have to write a full protocol. Now, in the charge station world, though, you can write a protocol and then apply it to all of them, as long as you're doing the same thing in all of them. In the industrial world, that doesn't apply, and you have to write a protocol. But so for our customers, I mean, we'll write a protocol and then been testing all the protocol for years. So sometimes we'll want to change something and say, hey, this method is in here, but we are using it, we want to take it out of the protocol. And so we might do that, but otherwise protocol covers. And then the state will issue, will kind of come back and say, okay, you can use the protocol for anything that you're testing under general permit. And then
Doing the same.
so, yeah, I mean, the same kinds of,
Just curious,
The same-
get out of the oil.
yeah, the same kinds of tests, I mean, right, so NOx and CO are tested basically anywhere there's any sort of combustion. And, I mean, I guess really it all started with power, utilities, solar, I mean, that's where that's started. But now, yeah, anywhere where they're burning something, you get NOx and CO. But in a lot of cases, you've got particulate matter, different kinds of particulate matter that you test for. Then there may be ammonia, there may be HCl, other hazardous chemicals that may be coming out from any number of processes, that you test for SO2, sulfuric acid, SO3, treat the train and irrigation. So, but yeah, these core methods for the engines are, you do need to.
They're considered criteria. You'll hear that. Something special based on your process. And gases, or construction efficiency, oxidizer, or Those are different kinds. But as far as protocol, it can vary on the fly. 30 days, 60 days, doing something complicated, like a hazardous waste act, incinerator test. Oil and gas, oil and gas.
And welcome to our talk here. We, yeah.
We're, about 35 minutes in and.
No, serious.
I would have been, it was at 4:04 and then changed to, so, yeah. I had to download the app, wait for it.
So, yeah, it's pretty much a round table.
Have you guys ever had to quantify gas coming out of like a bowl or anything? Amine rebowler, black collar rebowler, anything like that you have? Just, I mean, I guess that's the strange part to me is I know I order like a quad J test or something where I'm
Yeah.
looking for exactly this criteria pollutants, but if I want to know what pollutants I have within my stream at that point, how do I find that out? Is there like a wide variety? I don't need specific.
Yeah, I mean, so there's, I mean, there are definitely, there's hundreds of test methods.
That's my
Right.
problem is I don't.
So the thing to do though is there's certain classes of compounds and classes of things that maybe,
Like VTEX and VOCs, is that kind of.
no, I was just gonna pull this one here. So, but you've got different types of compounds, right? You can say, well, okay, there's solids and particulate matter, and there's all different kinds of stuff like that. And there's semi-volatiles and other organics, and then hazardous air pollutants. And so there are some broad methods that kind of cover ranges of things. In the case where you're like, I have no idea what's coming out of here, and would like to know. A lot of times talking to the engineering and design firm or whoever built this thing or whoever designed this process, they're probably going to be the best place to start.
Yeah.
Or you find stack testers that, hey, have you done one of these before? And say, oh yeah, here's the things we looked for. And like that's it. But they got that information from the same place. Because, you know, if you were to throw together a test and say, okay, well, what's coming out? I mean, you've got $100,000 test and you're going to get this much information. We get those, yeah.
Like, we want a speed state and VOC.
So,
Yeah.
Okay, well, how much do you want to spend?
That's the email I got from operations the other day. I was like, yes, but you need to get a little more specific.
yeah. I mean, and so really but the way to go about it, you say, okay, you order a quad J test, you just say quad J and everybody knows what you mean. For something like this, you need to go through a process that's much more like an industrial stack test process. So, and it comes down to, right, providing this kind of information out to vendors. Saying you find some vendors that do industrial stack testing. First of all, folks who just do engines are going to they've got quad J and maybe quad Z, and that's it. Like, as long as they do other industrial stuff, then great. They're going to, be better equipped to handle this request. And then you go into that conversation with this kind of information. Okay, well, here's what it is. Here's what I do know about it. In the case of a reboiler or a dehydrator or something like that, okay, you're not producing anything, but just telling somebody that's what it is gives them, okay, yeah, I know what kinds of things we're looking for. And then you basically, the more information you give to any of stack testers, the better they're going to be able to develop a plan for you. So some of this doesn't really apply. This really applies to industrial sources here. But then, okay, do you have a control device on it or not? Or is it just, okay, we've got it here and that's it? Or just sometimes folks have scrubbers on, sometimes they route them to a catalyst bed as well, before it goes off. And that maybe if just not routing to a catalyst bed while you're being asked about speciating VOCs, because well, what are the VOCs here? Do we need to deal with it?
Yeah. And it's a.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess it's, yeah, I guess it is. But,
One of the best starting points for any stack tester is going to be an old report.
yeah.
Even if it's, and sometimes we get them, the guy's like, well, I've got a report from like 97. And I'm like, I'll take it. But, okay, now if things have, I'm sure things have changed to your facility since then, right? There's all different, you're bringing on new product lines and replaced, half of the equipment since then. But still, it gives me some directional idea of what to expect.
We have new.
Okay.
Pretty.
Yeah, and so there should be some testing there. Or we say, okay, well, do you have another unit like this, even if this one hasn't been tested, do another one like this somewhere else that's been tested, and you kind of get some of that information. But I mean, this is really, the information that somebody's going to need to know to start it is, they obviously want to know, okay, the temperature of it, approximate moisture content, and that's saying all of this information is going to be in an old report if you have one. If not, in some cases, it may require 2 trips, like a first visit to kind of get this preliminary information, because for VOCs, for example, and in the advanced presentation on Friday, I spent about an hour talking about speciating VOCs. But there's so many different ways to do it, and the path you pick really depends on what's going on in the stack and what kinds of things you're looking for. So yeah, I mean, typically with like, okay, species VOCs, the first place to start is, okay, well, let's look at a total hydrocarbon number first. Like what's the total amount of organics coming out of here? Because if it's, percent level, hopefully it's not, but if it is, I mean, you've got a whole other set of problems. If it's, 20 to 300 parts per million, you get a different way to do it. If we can't see even 2 parts per million here, then you've got to think, okay, well, do we need to continue and drill down? Because there are certainly ways to do it and get down to, part per billion levels in the analysis. But that's really, it's like you do that first check and you come back to the customer and say, do you want to keep going? Or, so that's like really the most effective way is to have a pre-screening, and you get that information, you get the bulk gas matrix understanding, and then see, okay, which way do we want to go here? And they're not all mutually exclusive. You can do a semi-volatile test and different volatile tests at the same time. You can pull all different kinds of stuff. If the concern is hazardous air pollutants, there's like subsets in the methods. We can say, okay, well, here's the most likely HAPs from this process because we know what's going in, we know what's coming out, from the rest of the process side. Really have over here. I mean, standard stack testing questions and information, the things that folks need to know before they come out on site. Pictures work great. A lot of times we find people are hesitant to send pictures. Say, well, send me a picture of it. And they're, well, let me describe it to you. And I'm like, well, that's great, but can I have a picture too? It really helps. Or, if it's in a good spot, good timing, hey, we just, we don't really do that for engine work because there's about 3 different ways they're going to look, and across the country, they're pretty much the same. But when you start getting into, other things, at even other things at gas plants, and then in the industrial world, it's a whole different ballgame. For industrial work, yeah, I mean, if we haven't been there before, not for your engine
And those usually haven't been an issue, if you're, might will show us a picture. You know, this is how they're oriented, or, aerial view.
You know, we do have one, I think about it in northeast Pennsylvania, that when we first went to do it, I did go out there ahead of time, because talking to the guy, he's like, and I'm like, okay, well, you know, it's really not like anything else. And so I went out there, and it was just partially in a building. But he was really concerned and really insistent, like, I really want you to come and see it first. Okay, fine. But yeah, so.
That's it. And not, it wasn't on the presentation, but, development proposal about that. Changing a vendor, maybe, like, go on and on and change. All of their, really, that had to, they understand. More complex process. It is. Sorry, I have to go. We kind of jumped through the whole.
Yeah.
Kind of covered. Kind of covered a lot of it. Yeah, there's, yeah, there is presentation. We picked up a large, they're now part of it. DJI acquires those assets. That you guys were, that's great.
Yeah, that's, I mean, they've been part of us for. Yeah, it's relevant. Yeah. You in, oil and gas too? Oh, okay. So you do the fun stacks.
Other counterpart, he does all the stack testing like.
Okay.
Jeremiah Johnson. Are you back, Rick?
PVC Max.
The PVC man, were you there for the ICR for it? That they kind of kicked it off? Yeah.
Probably.
That was some wild testing. Because that was case, and it's actually kind of ties into what you're saying, because EPA said, hey, we want to know what's coming out, you know, from these 17 facilities in the US that are manufacturing PVC. And they put together this, okay, well, we want to see these compounds, these classes of things, these things. And they put together this massive request to do it. And the stack testers that were able to do it kind of came back and were like, okay, well, these are $300,000 to $400,000 tests. And EPA is like, well, we estimated that it's going to be about $80,000 a test. And so then they had to kind of go back and take some things off of there, but then they also turned around and said, well, find a way, like, it doesn't have to be following the method, find a way to combine these things and do some of these things together, because we really want this information. And we'll accept anything that you turn out. But those were very difficult sources to test, and I mean, during some of those tests, you guys are having manifolds, especially on the inlet sides, have these manifolds feeding 5, 6, 7 different sample collection trains, and some with dilution, and some going to FTIR, and just, it was a wild. And then I said, at least what came out of it, the MAC did not. Well, compared to what it could have been,
Yeah.
It's great to be put out there.
Exactly.
So, this is what, these are the methods we doing. Definitely trackers, there's a period, they have to build up the code before. So, that's at the baseline first, these runs, and we test 3 decode cycles. And they can decode, some decode every 28 days, some decode every 45 days. So statistical nightmare. You get that large crew, that large testing equipment, and there's a lot of those trackers are different. Decode create a firelog, like that, and some go through decode pop stack, so it's saturated gas, 90%, 95%. That you had to have somebody who's knowledgeable with the stack environment. That much moisture. If you're trying to pull a 3-hour test of dry gas, it's pretty straightforward. Pulling a 3-hour test of 95% saturated moisture, you gotta really plan and think, how do I need to reconfigure or add additional pieces? A lot of things have to go through where they just shot this out. Yeah, that was it. Those were projects that were $400,000 or $500,000.
It never happened for a question.
We'll see. Big topics nowadays. Our clients. Are the tool or are the process? That getting leg on their side. We're actually doing and talking about diet cup. That's it. Yeah, I mean, it's, we showed you the basic method 5 sampling thing, and it's a play off of that, looking at it from a semi-volatile perspective. So there's a little differences. Others, several. And Yeah, a lot of people are seeing it on the fish side, oil and water. Contamination. Fill landfill, leachate, that's one of the evaporator. They're looking at the leachate, how are we treating this? Part of it or evaporating it out, concentrated. It's an interesting animal. Because some of the background thing. They don't know. Kind of like the camera conversation you had with the state, you know. Sometimes what's coming out of the words.
Yeah, sometimes with really low level particulate matter tests too. Sometimes, I mean, I don't want to sample in the stack, but if this is something that's drawing a lot of combustion air and not really well filtered, so it's like, and it's like, well, and they're like, oh, we've got all these PM emissions, and, you know, find out, I mean, this potential sort of it, and it's like, well, and then it becomes a weird conversation though, because ultimately the state agencies can say, well, but it came from your property. So it's like, you know, but I mean, we actually, did a low PM test, in, Maryland recently, weeks ago, and had these really high background numbers. And this is part of what we were doing, was looking at the background numbers. And then you start looking at the road plumes from the fires, and it's like, and it's coming down. This is a 150 foot stack. So it's not necessarily coming down to ground level, but it was like enough. We took a background train up there, so we're below the top of the stack, but like, there's no way stuff that's coming out of the stack is getting. And saw that background. Okay, well, that didn't come from here, but then you end up in these arguments with the agencies. I mean, we're suspecting it's the wildfires out west, yeah. California. No, the test was in Maryland, yeah. No, I mean, this stuff. Oh my goodness, it's all the way across the state. Yeah. Yeah, and so the problem is, in some areas, it's higher, and then as you get out towards, so coming off of the Appalachian Mountains, coming down, the ceiling for it is dropped down to, I mean, like, feet or so, 100 feet, or say, oh, that's kind of a low level, but over 150 feet up, like, it's not like somebody drew a line at 300 feet high, you can't go down below here, you know? Yeah.
You guys have that card.
Is up in your, area?
Yeah, I'm in our Philadelphia office.
Okay.
The argument is about us.
Anything else that,
There you go.
That's been pretty good. Sometimes they're,
Thanks for your time, Beth. Sure, really. Anything you want to learn about or talk about?
Self-experience.
about 250 runs a year. Yeah, and so for that work, you know, we partner with Test America on the analysis, and I mean, they are the premier laboratory, some of that stuff. There are other labs that do it, but I mean, Test America is the one that anytime somebody has these comprehensive performance tests, massive test programs, and just stand up, where you have written protocol a year in advance, all that stuff, like, that's who they use. So we use them pretty much exclusively for the access experience analysis as well. But yeah, I mean, we easily had. That thing about, we have 100, so that train has, right, there's a condenser and a trap, so it's a resin packed trap. And, that trap is prepared at the laboratory, they pre-spike it, get it ready to use, and when they analyze it, they're gonna check for that spike back on there, make sure it basically proves that the sample was done correctly, and they captured everything that's captured. Let's go at the lab, I mean, they've got 110 or 120 of traps that we own that they keep at the lab, so that when they're going, and we actually had an issue with, they said, we don't have any more of your traps on the shelf. It's like, got that many projects going on right now. But yeah, it's the actual collection is not too terrible. It's just, it really, a lot of it comes down to the care of the field techs, of paying attention to what they're doing, and having good, clean reagents, not leaving stuff sit out, you know, to pick up those values. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because it's such a sensitive analysis in laboratory. I mean, they're looking at some extremely low levels, and you know, you sometimes see things that are unexpected, or like you'll see one run might have a bigger number for one of the classes of compounds, versus the other one. And then you kind of go back, well, did anything happen? Is there something else going on? But usually, if you have, you know, a hit and it shows up in multiple runs and not the blanks, then it's like, no, it's there, like, you know, telling folks how to deal with that, and well, what could be causing it, that becomes a whole other.
Yeah, sometimes like, you know, previous tests have been fine with passing, and then all of a sudden something. Or you see, oh yeah, well, we did, scrubber, French cow with, so maybe, that formation, temperature zone of where toxins form, maybe it's not there, like, gas is spending more time in that formation zone. So just different things to kind of lay out what.
Unit itself, thinking process. Or attend to it, because I guess last time it was been for that.
So it's on like a starter system, or shower,
Bombs. Last year. Presentation will be.
I have no idea. In past years, they have aggregated them and made them, available, like, you know, like log in to see them somehow.
Did you ask if they're covering the annual? Maybe I didn't. Hold your question on the, if it's gonna be available.
Oh, just like the presentation. I was gonna look at it later on.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking, is it on analytical or like,
Oh.
Well, too, I mean, if you leave me your card, I can give you a copy of it.
I was in the process unit before I came up to the page minutes.
Give me the address.
All I have is their card. I've got one. But,
Sorry.
it's a Zachary, Zachary.
Yeah, but yeah, and then that way, like, you know, I can send this to you, and then, you know, if you have questions or dig into any of the things, just here, because, I mean, a lot of it is, you know, just talk about the points, but you see some, how you know more about it. Yeah.
are you for the entire conference?
Yeah. I know, I'll be meeting them. I help out a lot. All right, well, it's nice meeting you. All right, appreciate it.
What race? Yeah. Some race,
I don't know that.
So we did this project. Protocol.
Oh, yeah.
Came back, I wrote that. And all of those. We didn't have the blank. The blank was consumed.
Right.
I told Shane, told that crew, go back, go to the same truck. I'll get some water, get another blank from water, squirt bottle. Shane was calling, go back. He said he took. Water box. Hey, man. So you said that you got the line directly from Fox? And so I'm taking it water. Yeah. So that was that water was when I said I had issue on this way. And the water. But the water things bad, you know. So I'm thinking that it made the tank where it was definitely very and it says process. So that's probably aspect. This other, I mean, I got damn place Is there a lab? The other possibilities. Yeah, okay, that's the lab, and as far as I know, they, I mean, that's not. Yeah, I asked that question. But I'm almost feet away of that system of water, and it doesn't give me the same. We just says, yeah, just give her that water. It'll give me about 3 more weeks, and I can go to Denver. Yeah. And I think it's the was on there, and they got these just asking her, so they got or whatever, and key terms. This project, I have a contamination water, that means they have fuzzy in there. Well, that's what they're telling me, like I called one of those guys and said, they don't clean that, dehydrator, like. I believe that. Yeah, and he said, and there's no solvent rinsing or washing down or anything. All natural. Right, and everything where you know, this terms of the and the stuff I wouldn't take it to the possibility of being able to do it. Because they do things like is that, I mean, that box of water, I mean, it's the standard, refill DI, we're not refilling it or anything. No, because they are, music program, over the lab. And we had to say that, it's having problems. But it's broke down because the part is still open. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I mean, we can send another aliquot somewhere else, and then really, that becomes, hey, we put this data and go back to the picture. I mean, maybe we can go back to the picture, or doesn't solve the problem, doesn't. Right. I mean, it's, okay, let's think about it a little bit, and we'll yeah, I appreciate that. Okay. I appreciate that. How you doing? Oh, good, sir. See it. Just a little bit. We had some folks come through, you know, we talked a little bit, and we did, kind of roundtable style discussions on what's bothering them about stack testing. So, oh, I'm just kidding. We're not trying to try to like that. Yeah, no. I mean, I was a little surprised that it was like, we were half hour before I like, kind of put their head in and see what's going on. But Steve, both, who was that? He was over. So. What do you buy everybody else? We're almost 50. I'm hoping to do that. You go after everybody on that one. Well, but that's okay because you rely on you guys, so. Not like you're that much anymore. Then your guys down the road. Oh, who you know? I mean, but this are, that's what I'm saying. Oh, analysis, you're, you know, that, so we bought one of the Spectrum this year. Because, so, right, we've got limitations, and yes, there's only so much. And some of the parts, like, placing yours, we did, well, we actually, this year, we recoded, 14. And it went pretty well, but in the past. I understand, that's not what I actually was. Yeah, okay, I was going to have. Remember, I relegated running at the day-to-day of that program. Yeah. Yeah, we understand. We're looking. Yeah. But yes, so, you know, it goes directly, yes, but, that. Yeah. And leader path, and the like, in proper second class, easily, the dual color detector, right, so it's the NCC and NC, so we get the best signal across the biggest range. We stacked it up against Marty's X IR, and problem I had with this system is it kind of gets done, like, okay, well, this is not a new technology or a new approach to doing something, and it's perfectly applicable in a lot of research settings, but what you're doing is so far outside of what EPA and methodology calls for, and it's a lot more hocus pocus than the actual, and just straight up measure. Because right, he takes and divides it by 8, and multiplies it by this, and subtracts it from this thing. I'm like, dude, like this is like, if your point is to get to where a regulator asks a question about it, and you can just think, it's so complicated, you'll never understand it. Then you've done that. But that doesn't really, like, I'm not sure who that serves.
It doesn't serve, yeah, that is like, you gotta get explained to the regulator. In common man's term,
Right.
understanding.
Right, and that's it. And explaining the basic FTIR to them, it's hard enough. So, and I mean, I get it, you know, I mean, you say, well, we're trying to get an alternate method written, and, to do all this. It's like, well, when you're selling those engineers now, there are people out there using them right now for official tests, and it's so far outside of what's allowed
you know, but,
Yeah, and it's, you know, but in case of.
yeah,
We're looking at, you
I mean, I'm,
it gets to come out and you. And. I need to evaluate.
yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I think I'm more likely to go, you know, just Spectrum or something like that, but, because we're also looking at half gases, some of them are pretty dang. And we were, you know, replace parts, boards in the interferometers, you know, like, it's like, but a lot of those repairs can't necessarily themselves. And like, even aligning the box with the interferometer, because take the cell off to get to it, and then it's like, oh, I need something. I need to turn the light back around. So, I think it's fantastic, so expensive. Like the prices keep going up and like service is going down.
That's what we're trying to put.
They could do the repairs and.
Let's, I didn't say that, but. I said that you, okay.
Yeah.
They, you know, they want to do all the repairs. But they, you know.
Right.
And we're trying to figure out.
Yeah. I mean, it would be great, like, you know, and there's somebody who's like, oh, yeah, I'm a. Yeah, he's like, oh, yeah, I'll fix any of the MTS stuff, whatever. But I'm like, well, that's great, but you're no more convenient to me than MTS is.
But I mean, you know, just do our stuff. Careful with that. Still,
Yeah.
I got this today, but I'm on tomorrow, we. Beating all the other people.
Right, right. Yeah.
What's coming?
But, I mean, MKS is definitely resting on the fact that, you know, years ago, they went and they got every stat tester and push, and then they talked, they got EPA, and, oh, EPA uses this, so you want to get it right, use ours. And I mean, they did a great job of that, and then they just had to sit back and like, oh. Like, well, when you like, making money now? Because you already made that money. You gotta make more.
Well, but on the other hand, I'm not feeling the call, man.
Yeah.
And there's a reason they're saying, I want. Yeah. There's a reason.
Yeah. You guys, you guys used to also have the CAI.
So we did, another, what, I mean, everybody else, I mean, the other industry.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you know, the other one to look at really is MyNac. I mean, the I series. The problem is that when you start looking at a Spectrum instrument or I say MyNac, whatever. MyNac's phone, I meant MyNac. Because when you start getting to like the Spectrum and the MyNacs, you know, it's really need to know what's going on, what you're doing to be able to use it. And so I would be wary of someone unless I know, like, yes, they really know what they're doing. And I would be like, I wouldn't want you, whereas the MKS, like, you don't have to know that much to start hitting buttons and.
That's the nice thing about it. Something I would take. Jesse did up backyard, flower. I can have him running it
Yeah,
all day long. That's about the most that does. General.
right, for the, yeah, the bulk of the work.
For both of the work. But. And the roaders. They. Low level. Okay, really low level, low level, other things. The talking thing.
Yeah,
You know, so, okay, so I gotta make 2 years, I gotta get it down.
yeah, well, and, yeah, well, that's.
That's excellent, but, you know,
Right. Some of these low, the low stuff and that you get into ambient stuff, ethylene oxide is coming back strong. But, you know, so yeah. And at the MKS 5 year. Yeah. You can do it. Now, years ago, Marshall, which was still there, told me they were working on a 10 year. Well, but, tried to sell me one, but she said she started to pay more for it because it was a prototype. Like, I'm pretty sure it's worked the other way.
Exactly.
Well, no, but you know, because it's the first one, and I'm like, well, then give it to me cheap, and I'll go start using it and give you data. Like, but she was not interested in that.
once you market, once you carry our product out. I'm also, you talk about it. Hey, $8,000 for that car. I'm gonna have some, so for 90, it's worth about 8.
Right.
I can do that. Market is supported.
You sell as a distributor for some manufacturers?
So, yeah. You know, we sell the, now, you need to
Okay.
not just process, that get away from.
Yeah.
Your process now, a service provider. The service on there.
Okay.
It's not a contract. That.
Yeah.
We're in our break. We're in our break. A little bit of both. Yeah, we had some people, we kind of did more of a little round table, kind of what we're doing now. Something specific, that they getting down or. Yeah, Lord, come on in.
Yeah, you wanna talk about stack testing?
Yeah. How do you get on your short list? That's like, oh, that's certified on the arms, or certified. Yes, you know. So I don't know. Oh, okay. Not mine. Or mine. Last technical group there.
Oh, yeah, our partners. Partners.
All right, that's my.
Yeah, no, that's okay, I forgot about that page until you said it. Okay. Yeah, we got, yeah, big button partner.
I want to start.
right. Yeah, I mean, and sometimes it just, yeah, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense. It's like, even if we have an instrument available, it's like, well, that's great, I got it now. And I'm like, okay, well, even if I have one available over here, by the time I ship and do all this and then, but I need it, or the money needed for something else, rent, like,
I mean, I'm not even,
all the other stuff, yeah.
I mean, what is this clear?
We don't have any, agreement on rentals. Oh, there.
I know, it's all stuff to be on.
Yeah. That's, the thing is anymore now, we've got three of our shops have instrument maintenance repair, the set of instrument maintenance repair, and with all this over there buying, they got so many analyzers that some parts are bad, and it's like, we're like, so there's three locations, I got a total of 7 guys, so they're how to rebuild the analyzer. Yeah,
I know, I used to work with them.
Yeah,
And
when
I
I'm
was
doing that.
I was looking at. I wish he worked here, we go back to. And I don't think that, I mean, all, I told him. We were there.
Yeah, exactly.
We were looking at it. Oh, got that one. But he was wanting to say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, and so like we're, and all these companies, so like, ASI and Jacksonville, he's like, got a room full of pieces of analyzers, and like, oh, this one, okay, this piece, that, and they were doing it too, but they also gave their sends down there. I was just, okay, well, I can get the board out of this one, this out of this, but as we start consolidating all this stuff, and all of a sudden, it's like, we've got like easily 100 more usable instruments amidst this, 300 and 400 some. Graveyard.
You start making the board of this CO2, that everything works in the elements, in fact, you can start.
Right.
You got the tree shop, say, okay, let's just, now we got working.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we've been doing a lot of that. So like, I think a lot of our other analyzer rentals really have dropped off. It's not, but it's not like we're.
And then you go to this.
Yeah, eyes on the horizon.
That's what I'm saying. You know, I love on the road. You know, there's a couple of
Yeah, but I mean, because AQS did a little bit of it, and Joe, because he was doing it. Well, I will certainly, check in with Scott on this and see, yeah, he's gonna be here probably in, this afternoon, or it might not be until tomorrow, I don't know. Yeah, he's coming.
Yeah, I got to.
Yeah. Yeah, if I can, I mean, he's all of it at the beginning, and, our marketing manager, Nick, we're, like, Nick, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't.
I know, you were a later, it's all.
Yeah, yeah.
Something, they're competitor. One division is a competitor.
Well, I mean, look, I got,
Another division, they rent from, they call it, they rent from.
I got. CM Solution on here. There's SIMS integration and there's accuracy.
Right. They thought they wanted to do that. Yeah, to that one point, there, man, it's like you're two separate divisions.
Right, right,
And,
right.
I think they're not, and sometimes there's a great, there. Combined, you know, yeah, I mean, that.
Right.
You know, it's all. Hearing problems, I don't hear. And we sub that from each other.
Right.
And then they go, come on, you gotta tell us, that's our answer. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you know, we're all nice people. You know, it's in business.
We help each other out.
Absolutely.
They'll look at it, so. Like that, maybe, you know, man, like, it's like, yeah, we should leave it now, I think, you know.
And staff.
Okay, I'm here for recruit.
I don't, yeah.
I'm here for recruit. I'm already.
Chris, you wanna, help them push forward?
Oh, I did that job.
All right, well, I need to put pushers. Let's go. Hey, Trey. Well, I'm gonna write it up. And that's a good, and I text you. So then, about 8:30. About 8:30, one guy came in and talked to him for a little bit, and kind of had, you know, just, like conversation, and then he actually had us in for almost an hour. And two other guys came, one guy
Report's already
on the
there.
gas plant, just had a couple of questions, and then got most came.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Yes.
They're like, you have.
no, it's, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but why are we here this early, the day before the? Yeah. No, but I did. Earlier on, I was like, just exit. Here, I gotta go walk around, like some of the reasons I didn't have decent. Yeah, that's what I was telling you. So, you'll find out for it. It's been, keep in mind, less than. I was figuring that, you know, maybe like 30-40%, so. Right. It's,
I'm glad we back.
but I mean, so it was nice, you know, we at least. All conversations, where you were saying, what do you want to talk about?
I know.
Well, we should all be like saying.
There's a lot of. There's some things that we can talk about, and yeah, I actually.
There was one slide on.
It was not.
Yeah.
It says.
Oh, you know what? I think
It says something trans.
yeah, I fixed that.
Okay.
I have a version of my script, so since nobody's here, I was like, I was working on this, because
Okay.
last night I was going back through this one, because the formatting got really.
Dude, it was still all over the place, and then at one point I was like, shit, this is okay, just make sure it gets on the page. It's like, sometimes also it's like the text box, and the text between, it's like, well, there's.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, shit.
Yeah, so last night, I put in another, you know, hour or so also, like, I downloaded the ones up there, and I went through it, at least I was like, okay, can I get all the formatting, like,
Yeah.
kind of the same on the
Yeah.
side, and,
Yeah.
and
So I
go.
just went through the whole, the other one. That's what I'm trying to straighten it out. Possible. But all the, especially.
I have, I just, cause I can't, anytime I try and work on SharePoint, it's like, I can't do all the editing that I want to.
So I downloaded, what I do is I open it in desktop.
Okay.
And update the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how it's fixing, because I noticed I was like getting in, and like some of them, like the headers even, like, it looks so much nicer. And so it's like. I just do that every time. Yeah, so I've kind of been thinking at this all morning. But yeah, and so this year, so I don't even compare it, if that's as much overlap as. Matter. One of the things are. Oh, okay.
So,
I did. Do we have it up now or? Are you still waiting for it?
It's all that.
Yeah, Drew, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, and that's, so like, I'm kind of like, you know, how much, I mean, we had, so, Dave from Dynamics said that we came through, we hung out, talked a little bit, and, yeah, Mark from Cherokee and the guy from Bison. So it's like, we had just as many, like, SAC testers, SAC testing equipment as customers. So.
Big room.
It is, it is.
And you know exactly.
Yeah.
You gotta do that, or else I'll be calling you.
The big CDP was.
I know, yeah.
they got.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. At least, I mean, you're not consulted, right? A lot better.
And
Yeah. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's like, yeah, I didn't know.
No communication. At least in my region, because I'm regional. My region. I really do. And they. I was going this week. Everything set. They're 2, 3 weeks out. Friday. Central, so I'm Dallas, so Dallas, Dallas will, different. These are a little smaller. It's on the Eldar side. I don't know where we've got. Then we also,
I mean,
or, you are. That product. Yes. It is.
right,
Guys aren't doing it. I think so. Sponsored by the.
yeah, here, you know.
It can be. Or perception.
That's not the
They're fun. Yeah. Did you get them? I didn't know that. Yeah. Good talking to you.
Let's see, okay, like that.
Yeah, what's going on here? Just put up our head slide or. Just pretty, unhappy. Yeah, no, we talked about that a little bit. He was like, yeah, when he switched it over, he said like everything, and he was like, hey, like, we're gonna. He's like, all right, he's like, I have to just make sure all the content is like on the slides, like. And, yeah. Bigger. Come on. Problem solved. But yeah, he's all. Apparently, that, you know.
get where IQ are. Oh,
I mean, I don't.
No, this is one where he was gonna review stuff, right, like live or after.
Yeah, I mean, did ultimately did you do what we finalized that? Okay. I will check in. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the easiest. Yeah, I mean. But I think it's gonna be important to have that box, see if we can serve on. And I mean, even before we are in here, getting the second out on analog. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's weird. That's a lot in there. And I mean, the only other thing. Is it like a reused phone or is it a new one? Like, that's crazy. All my years. Never read. Okay, good. Good. Never. Always not a sat on the truck. Right. You know, definitely. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean. But, yeah, so this reversing it, and then. Send you some of it and tell us. Yeah. I would want to see a secondary. Editing of. I mean, I don't know. But I got the board upset about it. They already, this came to a consultant. Consultant actually never asked for it. They was like, we kept asking for plenty. Pay the bird from the body, a rock by our home. And, so it took us a while to get that paid. Honestly. Trevor and I did say, we got hit on that. Trying to confirm. And like, yesterday, another part of that. Yeah. Flashing out, he's actually. An hour of chicken call. It results in kind of. He was like, well, there's nothing. There's no way there's nothing. They know that there's, what Trevor's done, he's fully out. This is all preliminary, this is screening. So he pulled that out of the volatile. And I mean, little thing, so the only other hit there was the NEK or anything, right? So NEK is out. Well, we got acetone that doesn't belong here, you know. Possibly some. Yeah. I'll, yeah.
Yeah. I forgot, I don't know if that recording is recording or. There was no presentation. So,
Just go around here.
yeah.
I love that.
I think we chimed in, they'd be able to hear a little bit from the room. But, you know, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And what it is just about lunchtime.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty hungry. Sorry, you can see everything. Okay. I didn't bring my, charger. Oh, I charged the